Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is structure and deconstruction and how structures provide us with all kinds of support, but they can be constrictive and constraining. And by deconstructing these structures, we can ultimately come to a design perhaps that is more expansive and more supportive ultimately. So that's our conversation for today. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. You got in before we did our grounding, so we're going to do that now. Let's just take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, and bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, energizing all your cells and your molecules, your electrons, and creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and very softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the deliciousness of that sensation, to feel the tickling, the tingling, the friction, the sensation that allows you to become present right here, right now, to this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And today we're talking about structure and deconstruction. And this comes up because I'm working with, I'm building a team of people to put together a water summit. And I'm calling it a water summit, although we decided that that's not what it's going to be called. Anyway, the idea, I'm not even going to go into it right now, but in this team, good morning, April, welcome. So lovely to have you joining us today. Welcome. We're talking about structure and deconstruction. And so it was really interesting in conceptualizing this summit that we're working on. I am very fortunate to be working with some folks who have a lot of experience in this arena, and what their one of their areas of great talent and skill is in creating structure. And it's so interesting. It was so interesting to me to see that as they were trying to create structure, what I was doing just naturally, not intentionally, or not with deliberate intent, let's say, I was deconstructing what they were structuring. And part of the reason for that was that the foundation for the structures that they were looking to create was not in alignment yet with the vision that I was holding. And so it was a very interesting dynamic. And it was a productive dynamic. It wasn't in any way oppositional or it wasn't about conflict at all. It was about starting to build a structure, noticing what's going on with that structure, noticing that the foundation of that structure wasn't in alignment with the intention, and then kind of deconstructing that and looking at the parts of that structure that were in alignment. So what happens is that in our lives, we create all these kinds of structures to give us a sense of predictability and control so that, we're not subject to chaos all the time, right? And we'd like to be able to know, show up at work and know what we're supposed to be doing, right? For the most part. I mean, lots of us need variety. I know I need variety, and there's some degree of structure that also really supports me. So finding the balance between structure and creativity, structure and flexibility, structure and freedom. It's a balance. And what happens is we set up a lot of structures in our lives that don't give us space to really live them. Like I would venture to guess that, good morning, Dido or Sue. Great to have you here with us this morning. So we're talking about structure and deconstructing. And in other words, challenging the structures that we've established, because while we build structures with an intention to create support, oftentimes we end up choking off our life force through these structures. So examples, like we might have a time management system, and we put things into that system, and then we're maybe feeling overwhelmed or bullied or stifled or robotic in the performance of that system, within that system. And so I think we get to deconstruct the systems that we create, not to just be creating them by rote, so to speak. So one thing that's been up for me a lot lately, and that I bring to you, is challenging our fundamental assumptions, because so many of those assumptions are based on misguided principles or unexamined foundations. And I think that as we are evolving so rapidly, it's really a critical thing for us to be looking at these foundational assumptions that we just accept as a norm. We accept that that's just the way things are, and we don't question those things. And so that's what this notion of deconstruction is about, because when we look at the way that we live life on the planet, so much of what we take for granted and what we assume is really misdirected. And so here's an example. And this goes to the notion that we are really, really cultivated consumers, that we have been programmed to be consumers. So Rosalind, I see your comment, but I want to finish this thought first. So one of the things that, if we're working in a work environment, we've kind of been conditioned to the notion that we can't be seen wearing the same thing day after day, right? That we need to be wearing something different every day. And that's kind of built into our culture, right? Is that it's not cool to be wearing the same thing one day after another. And so what's underlying that? It's a consumer thing, right? Like we have to have this whole wardrobe that's all different, so that we look abundant in some way, shape, or form, because we have all these clothes. And so we don't even question this, right? Like it's part of our cultural norm. And any of you guys who've been here for a while notice that, and I'm not saying, good morning, Bernadette, so good to have you here with us. I'm not holding myself up as an example, but I am saying that I have found for myself that having kind of a uniform is helpful for me in a lot of ways. And it challenges our notions, you know, in a social setting. Well, what are you wearing today? What are they wearing today? And, you know, somebody who wears the same thing every day is pretty weird, right? And so how does that translate into our impact on the environment, our impact on the world, right? We're buying all these clothes, and we buy new clothes for new seasons, maybe, or we have a different pair of shoes to wear with every outfit, perhaps. Or do you see how these cultural patterns are ingrained, and we don't even tend to question them? And that's just a very superficial example. But Rosalind says, example, trying to constrain nature like riverbanks, maybe putting up walls or roads too close to the river, abandoned those constructs to build a new path. I love this, Rosalind, because you are speaking to my emerging soul around water, and the deeper understanding that I'm gaining about water and how we interact with it on the planet, and how we have tried to constrain it and make it go in straight lines and shuttle it to new places. And as a result, we have done incredible damage to our environment and to the entire water cycle. Again, without realizing, because we haven't questioned water's a problem. We don't want it flooding our backyard, or we don't want it flooding our basement. So we get to redirect it someplace else, right? And we can create centralized places for water, like dams that can then power certain things. And the thing is that we haven't been aware of the impact of those dams on aquifers and local water systems and the actual water cycle itself. So we get to be revisiting these assumptions. You know, if we look on an environmental level, we all have this notion now that carbon sequestration is going to save us from climate change. And that is a fundamental assumption that actually gets to be challenged as this whole notion of the water cycle, actually healing the water cycle, is a much, much, much more impactful, effective way to be engaging with the issue of climate change and cataclysmic storms and the cycle of fire, flood, and drought. So interesting, right? Like there are many assumptions that we just buy into. We buy into the assumption that bottled water is safer than tap water. We have been educated, we have been programmed, we have been conditioned to believe that in order for us to be drinking safe water, it should be out of a plastic bottle. Now, hopefully you're not prey to that, that assumption, but so many people are. And the truth is that in many cases, the water that is put into the bottle is tap water to begin with. And secondarily, that the plastic bottles are leaching all kinds of chemicals into the water as those bottles are exposed to heat and cold and temperature change. And there are plastic particles that get into the bottles just by virtue of the way that they are produced. And then we ingest those plastic particles. And of course, the plastic bottles end up being here for hundreds of years, if not longer, polluting our environment. And we haven't even talked about the fossil fuel extraction and the manufacturing process that makes the bottles in the first place. So, you know, when we start to question how conditioned we've been to believe that, right, the bottles themselves don't even dissolve, Bernadette says, exactly, but they do off-gas chemicals into the water and probably and into the environment when they end up being put in landfills, because they don't get recycled, because we don't have a system that actually truly recycles them. Like less than 9% of all plastic gets recycled. So if we start to question this, you know, like buying bottled water, we have bought a advertising scheme, hook, line, and sinker, right? So we're better off drinking tap water. And if we need to purify that water, then there are water purification systems that we can get that are going to be a whole lot more economical and ecological and healthful than drinking water from plastic bottles, right? But we don't question this because we have been sold a bill of goods, and we've drunk it up. Right. So Rosalind says, what's the design criteria for the new structures? What's guiding the new system? Well, I think, Rosalind, I don't think that that's a black and white kind of, there's no black and white kind of answer. I think what we've been talking about a lot is emergent technology, emergent thought, and tuning into the possibility of the future rather than being bound by the constraints of the existing system. If we look at the existing system, we've got unsolvable problems. If we look at possibility, then potentially we can be redesigning from the ground up. And we might find that a lot of our structures are truly obsolete. And Buckminster Fuller has a quote to the effect of, and I'm probably going to just destroy it here, but to the effect of, you can't convince people to let go of the old. Just give them a better option, and that will create the transformation from old structures to new structures. So create something better, and then the transition will be there. So as far as design criteria, I guess for what I'd like to see being design criteria for the new structures is a holistic view of impact on all levels of what this what the system looks like. You know, how is it affecting nature? How is it affecting human beings? How is it affecting our health and wellness and the quality of the water, air, and climate? You know, these are some criteria that absolutely should be built into new structures, because we have run roughshod over our natural resources and our human resources. So Kate Raworth is an economist who developed something called donut economics, and it's a beautiful illustration of certain foundational criteria that ought be used, that are life affirming to use in the development of business, for example, business, commerce, policy, etc. You know, it's based in economics, but what we have, and this is another really flawed and dangerous assumption that we've operated on globally, is that GDP is an indicator of health of an economy. And the thing is that metric. Oh, thank you, Dido. You're the best. So Dido put in a link about donut economics from Kate Raworth. And the thing about donut economics is that it is incorporating quality of life. You know, so it's talking about the fact that there are many, many services that make the economy run that are invisible and unpaid services, mostly done by women of households. For instance, childcare and meal preparation and house cleaning and all of these things that women tend to do as a woman in a household. And these are unpaid services. And they, as unpaid services, they're not even accounted for in the economy. And they are foundational to having the economy work. We also don't look at the cost of the abuse of our resources, our natural resources. And we don't look, as part of our economic picture, we don't look at the health of the environment, the quality of life of people, the persistence of nature, the preservation of natural resources like water. So Bernadette says the lineages of distribution for waste disposal is horrific. Some have been found in our water systems and land. So my question would be, how do we rectify the past damages in our world? And is there ever going to be enough for a more sustainable, healthier life and climate control? So those are the questions of our age, Bernadette. And the thing about nature, and this is another thing that we get to rethink, talking about deconstructing structures, right? We have all this stuff set up for waste disposal. In nature, there is no waste. Humans create waste. So we get to rethink that whole thing. Like, what's up with this thing about waste? We're in a closed system. There's no room for waste. So, there are lots of people working on the plastic issue. And we haven't come up with something yet that resolves it. If we keep going the way we're going, there'll be more plastic in the ocean than fish. And so we get to be rethinking our ways of living. Like, we consume, we cannot continue to produce and consume what we produce and consume, and to be generating all the waste that we generate. It just is not tenable. And so we get to rethink and deconstruct our way of living to come up with new ideas about how we be on the planet. We go and we collect stuff. And so much of the stuff that we have is absolutely ridiculously useless, right? I mean, really, really, really ridiculously useless. And yet we continue to accumulate more, because somehow more is a validation of our being. It's real, truly insanity. And yet we don't call these things into question. We have all these stores for all these things. We want variety. I mean, 10 types of toilet paper. I mean, it's kind of craziness, right? I mean, how about just the thought that we use fresh water to poop and pee in? I mean, how crazy is that when we're talking about water scarcity? It's nuts that we use perfectly clean water to turn it into waste, right? These are things we get to rethink. These are things we get to deconstruct. So Bernadette says, are we at a point, though, of no return, just postponing the consequences of our past? I think it's very tempting to fall into that resignation, Bernadette, and many people have. And there are also many people working to make change. And the foundational change is in our way of thinking and our way of being and relating to ourselves, to each other, to nature, to the planet, to our responsibility, that we get to wake up and shift our thinking and then take action in accordance with the new awareness. And there is a deep call for activism, no question. And it's yet to be seen as to whether we can make the changes necessary. It's yet to be seen. So there are things that we can do. And that's what Sustainability Now is about. I invite you to check out our website, sustainabilitynow.global instead of .com. We have lots of interviews with people that are doing all kinds of things to be shifting our being on the planet and our impact, and creating new ways of interacting with our situation and circumstance. And it can feel that it's overwhelming. I get it. Come to our movie nights on Thursday nights. I know Rosalind's been joining us, which is awesome. And there's hopefulness too. So Bernadette says, absolutely, action is needed, and I only hope it's enough. Yeah, me too. Me too. And meantime, it gives us something to be working toward. And there will be times when we stumble and feel hopeless and overwhelmed. And then there will be times when we have hope. One of the most hopeful things I've seen is Water Stories. They're going to be doing a course starting in June. You can get on the waiting list now. Go to community.waterstories.com and sign up, and you'll be invited into the community, and then you can get on the waiting list. It's going to start registration the last 2 weeks of May for the beginning in June, and powerful ways that we can really help to restore the water cycle and heal the planet. So heal climate change, heal drought, fire, flood. So thank you so much, Dido. I so appreciate that. And I appreciate all of you. Thank you. It's my joy and privilege to be here with you each morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page at 9 a.m. Eastern. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. Please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network. And I look forward to seeing you here again really, really soon. Until then, so much love.